we're going to talk about women in the fighting game community and how it can be rough for us to be here, specifically in the NA scene. And what is the impetus for this video, other than me being recommended to talk about this because someone who I care about actually sent me a pretty good tweet, was like, hey, you might want to talk about this. And I've had a lot of other women ask me to talk about these kinds of issues and use my platform for it, so I'm going to. And this is coming out of a tweet from Sonic Fox. They said, I wish we can get more NA women in our offline scenes. Seeing all these Japanese women kicking ass is so cool, and I hope we continue to try and cultivate an inclusive and safe place so that more women come out and show off their nooch. Great tweet. Heart to you, Sonic Fox. They are pretty awesome. Now, this is a complicated tweet and a complicated topic. I'm guessing they're out at Esports Japan and are seeing how many women are out there playing fighting games. And there are a ton of women playing fighting games in Japan. It is like a lot. And what's really interesting about that too is that in Japan, we'll come back to that. Let's start with the beginning of this tweet. So they're wishing to get more NA women in the offline scene. Let's start with that point. First point. There are not a ton of us in the scene. Offline, specifically. In the torrent cycle, like there are quite a few of us, but there are a lot of barriers we have to go through to show up, to play these games, both at a social level, like societal level, in terms of US culture, North Americans' culture toward video game playing, and whom they're for. And this is different based on your age range. So like I'm a mother, basically. So for me, we were taught video games are for boys and girls don't play fighting games. Girls don't play games at all. They don't play video games, they do other shit. So we weren't taught to do that. But guys were. It was like a guy thing, basically. So yeah, you're gonna have a lot of dudes playing it together with each other, and you're not gonna have a lot of girls playing it. You didn't find that to be the case in Japan, though. Now, that's not just because of the toxicity, because I'm gonna get to that. Sexism and misogyny. We're gonna come back to that, so we're tabling that for later. Hold your horses, that is coming. But first, we're gonna talk about NA. So, and NA's culture. The first one is games are for boys. So you have one mark, boom. So if the girl, for one of us to play get to a fighting game, no less a game at all, we have to not ascribe to that idea that fighting games are for girls, aren't for girls. Second barrier number 2 is going to be, why play fighting games? Of all the games we could play, we could play a cooperative game. We could play Overwatch. We could play League of Legends. We could play a team game. You know, there are lots of other games to play. So they're not just. If one of us makes it through the barrier of games are for boys, then the second layer of barrier is, well, if I do want to play fighting games, I have to be like a certain kind of a person to want to like fight, to have my video game also be about aggression and like fighting someone, and like that's its own thing. There's not a lot of girl gamers in general, and the FGC is small. You know, there actually are a lot of girl gamers. Like about 47% of gamers are girls. If you include mobile gaming, most of us are on mobile gaming. That's where the majority of us are. So, I mean, if you don't include mobile gaming, then I think the numbers are different. But there are a lot of us. There are also a ton of like women game developers. So there are a lot of us out there. It's just in NA, we're not well represented within the fighting game community, or any game really. It's not just fighting games. This is more unique. This is more of a broad issue we have. Most people don't think about mobile either. I don't typically either, but that's where a lot of us are. So, but in Japan, it's not the problem. So in Japan, my observation, again, I don't live there, never lived there. My observation from being many miles away is that same cultural framework of games are for boys was not in the cultural zeitgeist in Japan. So there wasn't that barrier of playing a game, a video game, didn't suddenly revoke your girl card. It didn't make you less of a girl, it didn't make you a tomboy. Like, no, games are for everybody. We all play these things. So the culture regarding gaming is vastly different. That's really the biggest thing. I'm going to argue that is the biggest thing. Bigger than the thing you might be thinking it is. So what you're probably going to think to yourself is, well, girls aren't playing these games because of sexism and misogyny. And is that happening? Yes. But this is where the tweet from Sonic became very interesting, because they didn't just say, I wish we had more NA women in offline scenes. Then we could talk about misogyny and sexism and all the other things that are kind of making it hard for us to be in these spaces. But they compared it to the Japanese scene. Now, if y'all know, you might not, in terms of sexism and misogyny, it's pretty rough over there for women. Okay, it's really rough for women over there. It is really bad. So, you know, they're all girl trains because of how much we get harassed and physically touched in public spaces by men in Japan as a woman. So, like, if we're going to say the sole reason for the difference is because of misogyny and sexism, then we wouldn't be finding that there are more women in Japan playing fighting games. That doesn't track. You would imagine that is the case, but it's not the case. It shouldn't be like that. Yeah, Barry, you're right. It shouldn't be like that, but it is like that there. So under that cultural context and that, you know, understanding, the only thing I can think of for why their scene has way more of us in it is that the culture toward gaming is different and it's not as gendered. Now in NA, it is starting to switch. It is starting to become less of a gendered activity where everyone gets to enjoy games. Girls aren't, you know, shied away from them anymore like they used to be. There still needs to be a lot of work done within our communities to be more inviting, to be safer, to be more just kinder to each other. A lot of times, but again, given that Japan has such a large women's scene, it's not just that. It just isn't. If we're gonna make the comparison there, the other thing that we could be doing better, which some places are doing, is creating women's spaces. So, like, you know, Konichi Clash has women's spaces, and we do our things there, and I compete in those, and they're great. I love it. I feel like a lot of people who like the FGC specifically are the kind in the older demographic. I mean, not in Japan though. Everyone's playing fighting games everywhere. And no, I wouldn't say that. 20 to 40s. I think we're just seeing more older gamers because, like, we grew up with these games. We're the first gen to be growing up as adults playing these games. So, like, for us, it's not going to be weird to be like a 50-year-old person beating people's chuckuses in these games. You know? The whole way we play and the way we approach gaming as a culture would be different. Right, it's more open and accept. Right, exactly. So I think that's the biggest reason that you see this big difference. It's not what you probably think it is, which is just misogyny, which is still a problem. And the reason I'm talking about that as a problem is because I'm saying it's kind of worse in a lot of ways. It's a lot more restrictive in Japan when it comes to gender roles, gender expectations, and the way women are treated. It's really messed up. So I don't think that's the reason solely. And even that said, we can do a lot better here in NA in terms of how we treat our women how we treat our gender diverse individuals. There's a lot of work to be done there. That's generally what I think. Uh, I think the main reason we see differences here is just the cultural difference toward how gendered gaming as an activity is. Period. That's it. That's the main thing. Can we make things better as FGC community members and being just, not jerks to each other and not being misogynistic and sexist? Yeah, we can, totally. And that'd be great. And I hope that to be the case. That's a larger cultural systemic issue that needs to get fixed, and that'll be a long time.